morning, if you've been here, most of you have, we've been doing a series on the Armour of God and the spiritual battle that we've been in. We kind of finished that, but we're actually just going to finish today with something different. And I'm just going to I'm going to interview Melle, so I'm like Oprah or someone like that. Dr. Phil. And we're just going to talk just a bit about what's been going on in Melle's and Michelle's life. Part of what we're doing today is talking about the spiritual battle we've been in, but by just going to talk to Melle about his experience of the last few months, and hopefully out of what he shares, you might be encouraged, you might identify with some of that and your own journey and your own spiritual battle. So we've not rehearsed, so this could go anywhere, couldn't it? We'll give it a go. But for those who don't know, Melle's had a big change in his life, and Michelle as well, but Melle particularly in his work life has been a policeman for how many years full-time policing?
13.
13 years, and then late last year made the transition towards working at Camp Clayton as the site manager, general manager, whatever you call him. Sort of part-time, and then officially half-time police now, and kind of full-time camp in some ways. But Melle, I think part of what I wanted to start out by asking you was that sense of calling. You feel like you had a sense of calling to that role at Camp Clayton, which kind of created some sort of battle for you with like, what do you do about your policing career? And so just tell us about that sense of calling. What did that feel like? How did you sense that? And was there a bit of a battle about whether you should obey that and what to do with it?
Oh yeah, absolutely it was. I think, thank you for getting the opportunity to talk about this. It's been a massive part of my story for the last year or so, and I think what we talked about, the Armour of God, it just really, this whole conversation today, I think will be about the fact of how to put this practically, how to make this a practical situation, instead of words on a page, how does it come into action. So yeah, last year, in August 2019, I went on a search and rescue trip. We walked from Pelion back to Cradle in the middle of winter, just before my birthday, and we had an absolutely horrendous time. The weather was horrible, but we had an awesome time at the same time. Met this crazy Belgian guy who was walking over that track in the middle of winter in one day type thing, and you meet people that are absolutely nuts. But we had a great time, got to Cradle, and one of the things we always do when we get to Cradle is go to the lodge and have the wedges and have a beer afterwards. And whilst I was sitting there, I got a message from Adrian, one of the guys that works at camp, saying that at that stage, Jono, the last person there, resigned. And it was like, we had just lost our site manager, we had just lost our financial manager, and here we went to office. So we lost all the management in a sense at camp. At that stage, I was the chair of the board at Camp Clayton, and I'm like, I forwarded the message to Michelle. I said, it's good knowing you, but I'm going back in the bush. It's easy to turn around and go the other way. And it really just, at that stage, we were preaching about Moses, and we just had a sermon about Moses standing at the burning bush. And it has become a quite significant teaching for us, because that's Sunday morning when you taught that. I wasn't in church, I was in Kids Connection, but Michelle listened to it and we talked about it afterwards and what does that mean. So we got to a point where we really, both of us, of course I came out of the bush and, it was the 8th of August and the next day was my birthday. The 9th, and we talked about it, and in the morning on my birthday, we're sitting in bed and talking about, well, what do we do? Where do we go? Where's the camp going? What does this look like? And I had put my hand up to be the chair board, but does that mean that I step down? Because if we wanted to go on to help them out, we couldn't be on the board because of the conflict of interest. So we decided, let's think about it, let's pray about it, and let's put a plan together. And Michelle really is the one that made this all, in a sense, happen, because she decided that she wanted to get involved as well. Initially, I was all involved and I was all happy about it, but she got really excited about the fact when Jono resigned about the opportunity to doing this together. Not just me, but doing this together as a couple. And your question here is asked about, a calling. Something that I've always really wrestled with what does that mean to have a calling? It's like, were Michelle and I meant to get married? Or, am I supposed to be a police officer? Or, do I do this career path or that career path? What is it called? And if I say, God's called me to do that, you've got no right to say anything anymore, because it's the end of the conversation. Because I believe that God has ordained this. End of discussion. I don't have faith like that. I believe that God really blesses the things that we put our hands to. And that's when we came to the burning bush experience, where we just, said, that idea that Moses had two options. One option is, you go your own way, you try to do your best, and, good luck, or you go God's way. God has got a perfect plan for us. And I think, we really stood there going, well, what do we do? And it's like, we decided that if God wants us to be in this position, He will bless us in this position. And that's what I mean with the calling. I believe that, we are there for a reason and for probably a season. But at the same time, God will bless that. And looking back on it, in the last 10 months or getting close to 12 months now, it's been a challenging time. But at the same time, it's been, we've seen the blessing because we've decided to go into the direction we felt God was calling.
So was there much of a battle when you decide, will we, won't we? Was it and
I'm going to ask you the same question, can't I? What did you feel like when you became the past here and left your work?
Who's interviewing who here?
Exactly. And it's like, I think this is the cool thing that we, exactly what, that wrestling side of holding on to something that you do know, that you're confident with, that you're comfortable with. When I came off the ships in 2007, I had plenty of money and made a radical change to go and do policing, and I went from probably $120,000 paycheck to a $30,000 paycheck a year, because that's what the change was. And we've never done anything for the money. And I think the thing for us was, I definitely struggled with the idea of like, do I stay with policing? Because, I can see that God is blessing me where I am and what I'm doing, and I've got a great opportunity to speak into people's lives and to learn and to see things. Like, I've got such a different perspective of life than before I joined policing, to understand some of the real challenges that people go through in their life and how much of this is a facade a lot of the times. That last 13 years has shown me, but that has equipped me for where I am now. So did I struggle with it? I still do. There's, the whole thing between, me doing my side promotional process versus, the stuff I'm doing in camp. What's more important? And that I think I shared with you guys a couple of months ago at camp as well, where I said, well, what do I do? Do I go for the promotional side of things, or do I go full-time camp? Or I'm still struggling with that. I'm still wrestling, but at the same time, I can see that God is really, walking that journey with me.
So you said yes to the camp thing. What do you love about your role at camp?
I love the kids, the teenagers, the camps. I love being involved in people's lives. I love having a laugh at them. More than likely there will be a few silly Snapchats already being sent about me being here because they do it to me, because I do it back to them. They absolutely fill me. Like, I'm seeing people come and having a great time, but that's the guys. I think the other thing about camp what I really love is its faith in action. We talk a lot about, how do you put faith in action on a Sunday morning? How do you do that at work or in your workplace? And at times, it can be quite challenging wherever we are in our life. But at camp, it's so much at the forefront. It's always there. It's bringing it out, and people there are very like-minded, which is very different, of course, when I go to a Monday morning at policing, where it's such a different conversation.
And so you jumped in and said yes and took it on. And what challenges have you had to face, and how have you had to show some faith in that? Coronavirus might be one of them, I guess.
No, absolutely it was. Initially, we knew what we got ourselves into. One of the big reasons why we stepped into the position we knew that camp needed somebody to take the ball rolling, or the bulls by the horn, really quickly, because it was a mess. There were a lot of issues. And one of the reasons that I stepped into the chair position was that I wanted to make sure that such an amazing side for such amazing people would not get lost due to mismanagement or due to just becoming outdated. I think a lot of people talk about the church being outdated at times because it's only for the grey nomads. Our church is a clear indication that that's not true, because the revival of this church is because of the kids that are in this church, because of the young people. We all folks just stood back and sorry, maybe I'm not letting anyone. We stood with you, but it is because of the kids that we've seen a revival happen here at our church, and I think that's the same at camp. It is about the young people. So we stepped in and we saw there was a lot of work to do, particularly when it came to the financial side of things. Camp has lost probably close to $800,000 in the last 5 years, just through either investments that were pulled out or just the cost of running camp. So that wasn't sustainable for the long term. We are very, very excited that through a lot of work we put in, that we are looking this year at a much better situation. But the challenge was, to take all the people that are there on that same journey. Camp has had a lot of tumultuous times over the last couple of years, and there were a lot of people very, very hurt from that. And there's a lot of preconceived ideas about that as well, and that's what we've been working on. So, to put faith and the Armour of God into practice, I think the big thing that we changed is prayer. We couldn't do it without the prayer side of things. We activated a couple of prayer groups very, very quickly, because if we're on the forefront of our mission is to reach young people for Christ, somebody else is paying attention to. You talked about spiritual warfare. There is a spiritual warfare that takes place at camp. There's a reason why, the last 5 CEOs have left under very difficult circumstances. There's a reason why the guys that are in the ministry office, have left under very difficult circumstances, because Satan is laying attack at that place a lot of the times. And we've seen that through our prayer group. And, you can be maybe a bit more traditional about prayer on this side, and then there's, of course, the other guys that are very, exuberant in that sense, on the other side. But both have a very strong point to make, is that we need to pray for what is happening and to pray against that. And so that's been a very practical thing that we've seen. What has helped us is that prayer in these situations.
So, I don't know, nearly a year later, I guess, what do you feel like God has taught you through this ups and downs of saying yes to Him?
I think there's 2 things that I can see. Initially, it's been really the parable of the talents. It's like God has equipped myself, Michelle, and all the guys at camp, with a whole bunch of set of skills. And it is, instead of burying one talent and just hoping for the best, I'm not as exuberant on that side of going, with the 9 talents and just making it 18. I'm probably a little bit more conservative and go to 5. But, God has really equipped me for the position, in a sense that I'm very practical. I can use my hands, but at the same time I've got the management side of things, and it's been taught to me over the last several years as well. So, I was able to bring that up, and I think that's, what I'm really looking forward to the future is the whole practical side of things of, using the God-given talents that we have and applying them. So then, Corona hit. We were doing reasonably well, and March 14th, camp shut down. We've been, for the last, we were closed for about 3 months until our first visitors returned again a couple of weeks ago. And I think the thing was, at that point, we didn't know what it was going to look like and what was going to happen. And JobKeeper has been probably the biggest saving grace that we've seen to our organisation and to us. I was still doing part-time, and I wasn't going to get more time because even the policing pulled in because they went like, everybody's leave got cancelled, so there were plenty of police officers around, so there wasn't more money to get there. We had made a step to reduce my income, so that I could spend more time at camp. So, I ended up on JobKeeper. And recently, I think the parable of the workers in the vineyard from Matthew 20 really came into practice. I believe our Prime Minister, being a Christian, almost applied that principle to JobKeeper. Because what happened is that, everybody was going to get $1,500. It was the person that worked 1 day a week, and it was the person that worked 7 days a week. But everybody got the same amount of money. And that principle, when the people came to the vineyard owner and said, hey, do you have work for me? The person that got, turned up at 9 o'clock in the morning and the person that turned up at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, they both got paid the same amount of money. And that, for us as human beings, we go, but that ain't fair. I worked for 8 hours and he worked for 1 hour. Why did he get the same amount of money? And I think, again, it really showed a principle to me, about, blessing, those who work with us, and I think, personally, it has been tough, to balance that in a workplace where you've got, we've got about 19 staff members, and they all do various hours, and to find that balance well and to make sure that, everybody, doesn't feel robbed in that sense or it's not fair and that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's been a challenge the last couple of weeks, in finding that out and how to do that. We don't know, again, we don't know what the future looks like. I was talking to, a few of you before church exactly about this point. We don't know if, come October when JobKeeper stops, what does Corona do then? We don't know yet. We don't know what the schools are going to do at the moment. The education department, both Catholic and the government education department are saying no school excursions or overnight camps still. So what does that look like for us? One of our biggest business partners are the schools. So we're still trusting God in that.
So when you say trusting God, what does the taking up the shield of faith, what does it actually mean?
I think it means that we pray about it and we give it back to God, and when the 14th of March hit, I was in Hobart, Michelle was up here, and we had no idea. Initially, we thought, that's going to be it. Again, looking, 3 months later, and we're in a very, very good position. We go, okay, God has been faithful there. We are going to trust Him that He has got us moving forward as well. We are going to be ready. We just take that a day at a time sometimes, or a month at a time, or 6 months at a time. At the moment, most businesses would run a budget for a year. I think many other business owners are doing the same thing. You're just setting a budget for 3 months because you have to reassess. Yeah, you set one for the year, but in 3 months we have to reassess and see what's going to happen and what does it look like. And I just, we did the same. Many of you have been very, very generous towards camp. But it is because of that heritage that we have with camp.
And so we've talked a lot about camp, but how important is it for you? How important is it for you, church family, for you, someone who's... It's easy when you're doing something like you're doing to just be preoccupied with that, and that becomes your whole world. But how important is church family for you and Michelle and your family?
I think the word is family. I can't remember the day we walked in here. It would have been, it would have been around 2008. I think that we walked into the church here and we became part of this family. Family is all about, you've got the favourites. We've talked about that enough. There are a few favourites, and the naughty ones. I'm missing one of them at the moment. One of you are naughty ones not here. I think family is exactly that, and it all comes back a little bit to camp as well. Is that camp is our heritage. Camp belongs to this church. It belongs to many churches, but it belongs to this church. So one of the reasons why I got interested in camp and found out about camp is because of our heritage connection to it. Family is important. You all are part of a family, and you all have reasons why you do things. You know, why you go to the shack, or you know, why you have a certain business mind, or why you have Sunday afternoon dinner roasts. You know, we all do things a certain way, and I think as a church, it's become really important to me as a family of four, you know, who weren't from the Northwest Coast, you know, to find a family that we, in a sense, belonged to, and that holds us accountable, and then, you know, in a sense, becomes, you know, your true north, you know, the truth. You know, we talk about that as well as holding into that idea, and I think for us, it's been really, really special because we got excited by camp. Many others here have, again, revigorated and excited about camp, because one thing we didn't want to do is lose that heritage. You know, and I think, you know, heritage is something that sometimes when you get a little bit older, you start thinking about, you know, what is your legacy, what do you leave behind? You know, and I think that's been so true for us as a church. You know, the church is a building. I know that, and we've got a great building here now, and I look at it a little bit with camp as well. It is still the people that are within it, but the building itself facilitates that, and I think camp has always been that too, a facilitation of other people to shine, and you know, having a place called home has been very, very important to us, particularly during some of my ups and downs. I'm not Steve Davis, you know, I'm a bit more like this, you know, particularly with my work in placing. I've had some really tough times, but church was this for me while I'm going like that, you know, and you know, it's just been very, very special. So, yeah.
Alrighty, anything else you want to say before we wrap up?
No, I just want to say thank you for accepting who we are, and thank you for your support. Thank you for being part of our story, and I hope we've made your story a bit more colourful, being part of that. So, yeah.
Well, thank you for Melle and Michelle and their family, and for what's been shared. I just pray you'll take this simple conversation and just encourage each person with whatever journey or whatever sense of calling they have in their life to push on through the struggles and to trust you and to step out in faith. Just pray a real blessing on them and on their ministry at camp, and thank you for church family and all that that means too. So we just commit ourselves to you now in your name. Amen.